Hello, hello, hello. It's your girl, Nicole Ryan with Lana Solutions, your debt diva here on KPAO. And if you're new to the show, it's just as it says, debt diva. We get rid of debt. So it's debt elimination, credit education, any kind of financial hardships or constraints that you're dealing with. We take the time to unbox it and talk more about it. It's financial literacy on steroids. And the reason I say that is because we really get into the root cause analysis of why the debt's there or why the financial constraint or hardship is there and the answers to come out of it, right? There is nothing worse than dealing with a bunch of debt and not having a clue as to, number one, why it's there, and then number two, how do I get from up under all of this debt? Well, that's why this show was created, so we can give you answers and financial options you may not know about. So today, with it being the tax season, right, 2026, I wanted to talk about taxes. And did you know there are millions of Americans who owe back taxes? Yes, millions. Do you also know that there are billions in taxes that are owed? And a lot of these reasons are because there's debt and folks are not sure how to get from under it, because it's either you have the income to pay and you pay, or you don't have the income and you don't pay. But what people don't understand, there is a gray area if you educate yourself enough where you can find out other ways and options to get that debt paid. So one thing that I was just doing some stats, and it says Americans owe hundreds of billions in back taxes and are nearly 700 billion in taxes go unpaid every year. Billions. Millions of people have IRS tax debt. Most tax debt comes from underreporting income, not just failure to file. So let's talk a little bit about that. So if you are a W-2 employee, what's that mean? You get a W-2. When you get hired, you work for an employer, and they normally have you fill out a W-4, right? Well, a lot of people don't know what deductions to put down or what numbers. Don't be afraid to Google stuff like that, or speak with your HR department if you have one, so you are putting the right deduction number on your W-4. Because what this is going to do when you get ready to file your taxes, if you're saying you have 0 deductions, just a simple ABC 1, 2, 3 example, that means they're going to take more money out because you don't really have any dependents where you need that money right now versus later. So what they'll do is they'll take out a lot more because they figure you're single, you can afford it. If you put a deduction like yourself and your 3 kids, they realize this is a head of household with dependents, and they need a lot more of their money. And did you know that if you're a student, you can file exempt? And there are a couple other options where you can file exempt, but you need to take the time and talk to a tax professional, a licensed, right, tax professional, or enrolled agent, or an accountant, a CPA, right, certified accountant, not someone that's just crunching numbers and say they're an accountant. Make sure these people are vetted, make sure they're licensed, and you make sure you're checking their reviews. Now, having ran a tax office for a few years, I can tell you one of my biggest pain points was to see people come rushing in January and February to file taxes to get a refund, but having no idea what they're filing, why they're getting a refund. A lot of them probably aren't really sure what they made for the year. All they have is that W-2, and they're running and they're coming to get this refund. But what they're not realizing is that refund can be used throughout all of that prior year to gain you interest and compound interest, and you could use it to invest. I don't want to go too deep, but with taxes, I want you to understand you don't have to have a tax liability. There are ways to work around that, and there's ways to take that refund money and use that to benefit you, especially if you're getting a refund every single year. You have to sit back and you have to find out why. Don't run to the tax office this year if you haven't already and just file, especially you small business owners. I want you to pump your brakes and I want you to figure out, how much did I make last year, right? What is my adjusted gross income and why, right? What is my tax liability and why? If I'm getting a refund, why am I getting a refund? It reminds me of the 5 whys, right? Or a little kid, why, right? We need to know these things because as you know and understand your taxes, you can set yourself up to utilize your taxes to help you have and be more financially stable. So for those of you that are in this arena where you owe billions, you know what I mean? Cumulatively as Americans, they owe hundreds of billions in back taxes, right? You don't want to be on that edge of the spectrum. It says roughly millions of taxpayers owe back taxes, and they have estimated around 11 to 14 million people depending on the year and the reporting method. And that's from Bradford Tax Institute, if you wonder where I'm grabbing those numbers from. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about taxes. I have a few bullet points for us to go over, and I want to ensure that I'm able to cover a few things. I can't cover all of it, you guys, but there are free tax clinics here in Omaha, Nebraska. And did you know that you have an IRS office in downtown Omaha? Yes, you do. Don't be afraid to go in there and speak with them about your taxes. But there are tax clinics that are set up they've been vetted and approved to help with filing taxes for free. And you'll have to look in. I think one is Lending Link off of 24th and L. But please just double check that at irs.gov. You can search tax clinics and they can help you get taxes filed for free if you are lower income or elderly and just not able to afford to do so. So today, let's talk about why it's important to always file your taxes, even if you cannot pay. Filing taxes on time, it helps to avoid penalties. And a lot of that debt, I can almost assure you, is from penalties. And that is where year after year it starts to accumulate. And when people come into my office, they don't know what to do. They either have a tax levy that's already been filed and they have a lien on their home or their bank account, or they've gotten a letter where it's getting ready to happen. And what I don't want you to do is wait until the last minute. If you are one of those people and you know you have not filed your taxes, that W-2 we talked about that you get at before, I think they give them till February 3rd now. But it used to be employers had to have your W-2 by the end of January. The IRS also gets a copy of that. So please don't think just because you didn't file it that they are not aware of what you earned that prior year. Also, if you are a 1099 worker and you're more freelance and you work for other businesses, they get a copy of that too. If the business is doing their due diligence, right? Payroll is an expense. So if I have a 1099 worker, I have to send that information into the IRS, right? Or my HR, my payroll department. So the IRS already knows what you're making. If you have stocks and bonds and you receive your form for your investments, and let's say you cashed out on 401ks or whatever the case may be, these companies legally have to send that information to the IRS. So I assure you, they already know. So you not filing your taxes is not going to help. And I believe they have it set up now where they will file your taxes for you. And you do not want that to happen. You want to be, because they're not going to look to see for any deductions or credits that you could take advantage of. So don't be surprised if you see a bill because you didn't file, because they're going to file it for you with the documents that they have, but they're not going to include any deductions. And then by you not paying, let me tell you what happens. Sometimes they start collections right away, right? Other cases, they may wait, but they have 10 years to collect on that debt. And what happens as they get towards that 10-year, get towards that expiration date, they will come after you full-fledged. Don't wait that long to not file taxes. And they've had hired on more people, but I know with the government shutdown recently and a lot of different things, the ripple effect of COVID and so much more going on, they have been severely behind. And I only know that because I work a lot of tax debt cases, right? And I'm always working in taxes. So what did I say? Always file your taxes, all right? Sit down with someone, get a second opinion if you need to, but because you are going to get a tax bill, that is not a reason not to file your taxes. Because what I have found is that the IRS will work with you, kind of like the student loan department. They'll stretch it out 100 years if they need to, and I'm just exaggerating. But they don't have a problem continuing to get interest and penalties if you don't set up some type of a payment arrangement. So please file your taxes. We used to have people come into a very well-known tax office years ago when I ran it. And I kid you not, there was one guy that came, I think he had like almost 10 years of back taxes. And when I tell you he came in there with a pile of documents, it's never too late to get in there and file your taxes. Now, unfortunately, after 3 years, if it benefits you, there is a cutoff. But if you owe them money, you still have to pay them money, which is ridiculous. But you can go in and you can actually file and you can amend. Did you know you can go back 3 years if you feel like a tax professional might have screwed your taxes up? And even if they didn't, I always tell people, I was just talking to a business owner Sunday morning, and they have a CPA that they've worked with for years, and she is absolutely wonderful. That's okay. You still need to get a second opinion. You know why? Because there's millions of tax laws. And even as licensed tax professionals, tax attorneys, enrolled agents, and I had a couple of those on my team, we don't know it all. We're still opening up our Pub 17 and everything else, going through every tax law, trying to figure out what is best suited for each case. And sometimes we got to even reach out to the IRS just to double check and fact check everything that we do. So with that being said, especially CPAs, because their profession is accounting, not taxes. They have to have a small amount of tax education. As a CPA, it's more accounting, okay? So keep that in mind. If you want to get a second opinion, go into some of these well-known tax offices, and they have the software pretty much already set up where it would ask my tax professionals and my enrolled agents the questions that they wouldn't think to ask as they would punch your information in each category. And it could crunch numbers, and then they won't refile it unless it's going to benefit you. And keep in mind, sometimes people miss out on all types of tax credits and deductions because they're not familiar with it and they don't know to ask it. So if you have not familiarized yourself with the new tax laws, right? How would you know to include that in someone's benefits? So Always file your taxes, always get a second opinion, okay? Because you can always work out a payment arrangement. Do not ignore IRS letters or tax debts. We kind of talked about this. So the IRS will escalate collection actions, including penalties, interest, liens, and levies. So respond early, understand your options, and stay in communication. So number 2, we kind of already covered that with number 1, but don't ignore the letter. If you get a letter and it's saying that you owe, please contact them. If you get a letter and it's saying that you've been audited, please make your way to your nearest tax office, tax professional, tax clinic, right? And find out exactly why you're being audited and what happened. And 9 times out of 10, it can be amended and it can be fixed, okay? Last but not least, you guys, stay compliant and keep records, especially my small businesses. File every required return. I told you why to do that. Track income and expenses and maintain documentation for deductions and credits. Compliance protects you and qualifies you for relief programs. There are so many relief programs. A lot of social media will refer to it as a fresh start initiative or program, but all they're saying in a nutshell is you can do an offer in compromise. That's where you can possibly settle the tax debt. You can do an installment agreement. That's where they work out a payment arrangement for you to pay the money back, which is income driven. So they do keep that in mind. And then they even have abatements and so much more. Let's say a tax professional or a tax office screwed your taxes up. They have an abatement form you can actually fill out. And even if you already have a lien, there are like 3 different options around liens from the IRS. So don't sit there and do nothing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. For the lack of a better word, or 2 or 3. When it comes to tax debt, just know that if you're paying taxes, you have a tax liability and you need to find out why. If you know why, and you have that same tax liability every year, you need to be making payments quarterly. So that way, when the first of the year comes, you don't owe $5,000. Or $10,000. Or I have one lady who ran a financial office who owed $50,000. So I'm saying all that to let you know you have so many options available, and you have an IRS right here in downtown Omaha. And you have tax clinics right here in Omaha, Nebraska and the surrounding area. And you have a lot of people who are willing to sit down and educate you on taxes, so you don't walk in there like, I don't even know how to explain it, you guys. I would sit in the office and just look at people just line up, and they're sitting around in chairs, and they have their W-2s and all their documents, and they're ready to file because they're getting ready to get that refund. I would even have people pull up in a brand new car before they got the refund. So you got a lot of dealerships that are soliciting you to get that tax money even before you have it deposited in the bank. We had one client pull up in a brand new truck. They were there to get the refund, and it ended up, I want to say it was offset. And that's what happens when you owe the government. Like if you owe student loans and different entities, child support, stuff like that, they have an offset program where you can go to irs.gov and look up offset, and you can check to see if they're going to confiscate your taxes even before you get them. Please keep that in mind. Same thing with your state taxes. So you have federal taxes and you have state taxes. And a lot of people don't understand that when they're opening businesses, they'll run out and go get an EIN for their federal employee identification number, but then they won't have anything connected to the state of Nebraska. And with a business, you have to register with the state of Nebraska as well. You can't just have a federal EIN, but that's a whole nother segment. All right, we'll get into that on another show. But just keep in mind that if you contact the Department of Revenue with Nebraska, they'll let you know too if you owe. Most cases that I've dealt with, they owe back unemployment for Nebraska, and they've had money confiscated, but they'll let you know right away if you're set up for that to happen. And they will also let you know if your federal tax is going to be taken. So call, do your due diligence. I guess I keep hearing the word due diligence, right? So just make sure you're doing your homework. And if you do have a lot of questions, I know a lot of people settle debt. That's something we can touch on real quick. If you settle debt and you have a savings more than $600, so I got a $1,000 credit card and they settled for $200, well, $800 of it will be filed as earned income under a 1099-C. That's right. So you want to crunch those numbers and see how that works, because some accounts that I've settled, like I had one lady, she had a second mortgage. She was from Indiana because I work with clients nationwide. It was $38,000 and we settled it for $2,000. She would have then received, if they were doing their due diligence, a 1099-C earned income on $36,000. So keep that in mind when you're settling accounts. I had another lady run up on me. We were talking on Sunday, who settled a large credit card and had thousands of dollars saved, but she got a 1099-C for thousands of dollars of earned income. So you want to make sure the financial people that you work for, whether it's debt elimination, credit education, insurance, taxes, just make sure they're vetted. Go to the Better Business Bureau. Check, do the Google reviews, click on the business, read the stuff. Even if there's only a couple people saying bad stuff, if there is a consensus of the same thing, you can probably bank, even if they have a high 4- or 5-star rating, that little gray area may be an area of improvement, if that makes sense. Just do your homework. Check to see how long they've been in business, because that says a lot. With Lana Solutions, we legally registered in 2011, but we've been doing this since 2008. We've been in consumer finance and taxes and insurance for it would be over 25 years now. Yeah. And with that being said, when you go in and you look at the reviews of businesses and you read stuff, and these companies like, First National Bank or H&R Block or Liberty Tax or Jackson Hewitt or IT Tax Solutions, which is one I do recommend, and it's a safe place you can go as well. Every Wednesday, IT Tax Solutions, Lana Solutions, a contract attorney, Omaha 100, and so many of us are with Grow Nebraska. Here in Omaha, Nebraska, it's called Grow Nebraska Women's Business Center. But if you come in there and you're a small business, we'll talk to you for free. And we'll help you as much as we can. And even though we're for profit, the majority of us in there are, we can still get you over to nonprofits. And that's one thing I love about KPAO. Even though Lana Solutions is a for-profit company, we definitely have a nonprofit affiliation with a lot of the nonprofits here in Omaha, Nebraska. And what does that mean for you? We are more concerned about you getting the answers that you need versus making a profit, because I believe it works hand in hand. When you take care of people, they're going to take care of you. So if you are in a position where you need to file your taxes and you just don't have the money to do it, please, Lending Link, I truly believe that's one off 24th and L. And there are others. I just can't think of the name, but go to irs.gov and look up tax clinics in Omaha, Nebraska. And all of those folks are vetted and they do it for free. And if you're a small business owner and you just have so much going on with deductions and expenses and you're not sure what to file on your Schedule C or any of your forms, come to Grow Nebraska Wednesday at 10 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Every Wednesday we're in there for free, and you can come sit in there and glean from a lot of us so you don't have to make any costly tax mistakes. All right, there's billions of back tax debt out there. So I know that that's one or two or maybe three of you. Don't be afraid to ask questions and get help, and definitely get a second opinion. Even when I work with clients concerning their debt elimination and their credit education, I always tell them it's okay to get a second opinion, all right? It's your girl, Nicole Ryan with Lana Solutions, your debt diva, here on KPAO. Have a beautiful day, night, whatever time it is you're watching. And even if it's not tax season, it is always in season to talk about taxes, all right? Bye.